very much. Chickahominy Power LLC is pleased to be afforded the opportunity to offer this statement to the Virginia State Water Control Board in support of our project being developed in Charles City County. Proposed facility will be one of the most efficient and environmentally clean generating facilities in the region and is anticipated to displace older, less efficient, and less environmentally clean facilities. The technologies being utilized by the Chickahominy Power Facility are the most advanced and efficient available in the market today. We recognized early that the proposed location in Charles City County will necessitate efficient use of water. In response, we have designed the Chickahominy Power Plant to use the least amount of water possible, which represents the principal foundation of our water conservation and management plan included in Section D in Part 1 of the proposed special exception permit. This has been achieved most notably through the use of air-cooled condenser technology in lieu of the more conventional water cooling technology, but also through an extensive use of water recapture and wastewater recovery. As a comparison of how Chickahominy Power Project compares locally and nationally in its water demands, we offer the following. The Chickahominy plant average water use of 57.1 gallons per minute and the proposed plant power output of 1,600 megawatts yield demand of 0.002 gallons per kilowatt hour, 2/1000ths of a gallon. The United States Energy Information Administration publication titled Today in Energy, Water Withdrawals by U.S. Power Plants Have Been Declining. The average national water usage demand by power generation in 2017 was 13 gallons per kilowatt hour, over 6,000 times the amount of water Chickahominy will use. Water demand in Virginia was reported to be in the range of 20 to 30 gallons per kilowatt hour, which on the low end of the estimate is still 10,000 times more water than Chickahominy will use. This positions the water demand for Chickahominy Power Facility dramatically lower than these national and Virginia averages. A further example of the successful steps taken to minimize the environmental footprint of the project, it should be noted that if the Chickahominy Power Project had been based upon a more conventional water-based cooling technology, the average water demand would have approached 6 billion gallons per year. Through the use of air cooling technology, water demand has been reduced to 30 million gallons per year, a reduction of 99.5%. In closing, we are proud of the steps taken to minimize environmental impacts of our project on all fronts. We truly believe it will rank as one of, if not the most environmentally responsible generation projects in the nation, and one that Virginia will point to as representing a positive and supportive step in helping transition to a more robust renewable portfolio of power generation for the Commonwealth. We urge approval of groundwater withdrawal special exception permit GW00787000. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I have a written copy of this.
Thank you. Average water use in gallons per kilowatt,
Yes,
kilowatt hour. That's the average. Do you know what the lowest volume of usage is by a currently operating plant in Virginia or nationally?
I'm sorry, sir, I do not.
Thank you. Might be good to have that at the time of this.
And I live at 680 Greg Lane in Sanson, which is 9 miles from this proposed plant. And I appeal to the Water Control Board to deny this special exception or any other permit for this plant. The water saving aspects of this and the science behind it, that all sounds quite reasonable. But my biggest concern about this plant has to do with climate change and the long-term impacts for generations of our continued use of fossil fuels. And the Water Control Board is in a position to basically put a stop to this plant because it has control over my water, our water, and this is an opportunity to begin to turn the tide of climate change in the right direction and not in the wrong direction. That's my comment. Thank you.
My name is Gustavo Angeles. I want to call the attention of the Water Board. I hope that the Water Board will instruct DEQ to do an environmental justice analysis on this in light of the decision of the Fourth Circuit of the Federal Court that we heard a lot of testimonies. It was for air, but the environmental justice is not only for air, it applies to water also. And we see how much money and resources have been wasted for having a permit being vacated after or more than a year. We don't want to see the same happening here, just because DEQ acknowledged that they don't have the capacity to do environmental justice analysis right now. They don't have a methodology. They hire a company that will allow them eventually in the future to do that kind of analysis, but they are happy still working on permits that are currently applied, and they shouldn't do that if they don't have the possibility to do an environmental justice analysis, because we don't want to see in a year, another lawsuit that says this permit has to be vacated because DEQ doesn't do environmental justice. And if it's that going to happen again, I mean, we as a taxpayers are paying for this, and that's not right. Also, it's important to know why I would like to know if DEQ asked this company to show them how it will look like to have a regular water permit, and show the proof on how much money that is, and if that's viable or doable. This special exception permit, which is for 7 years only, doesn't mean that in 7 years later they can apply for another special exception permit. And we don't want to see going this company from one special exception permit to another special exception permit. We want to see why they didn't go for a full regular water permit as it should be. Power gas plants are not there for only 7 years, so they should show us what happened, why not a full water permit, where they would have to get the water to get a regular water permit. That should be important for people to know. Another thing that I want the Water Board to consider is the amount of time that DEQ gave to the community. They have 2 meetings, roughly an hour and a half. They've been working with a company that have experts in water for more than a year. How the community is going to be able to present testimony or provide their opinions if they don't get informed. As you can see now, there is more people than it was at the hearing when they had this hearing for the air permit. But the presentation today, it was specifically about the water, which is fine, but it was technical. They didn't talk about environmental justice at all, and that's a problem. Thank you very much.
I live urban, Wilson. We live on the middle of Chickahominy, just 8 miles by my reckoning from the plant. And actually, the Virginia natural gas pipeline that will bring frac Marcellus Shale in to feed the C4GT plant does go right through my property. So I have found myself very affected by this, more so than I realized when I first began studying this process, because I'm concerned about our environment. So here we go. Having studied this permit request, I remain fully opposed to it on the basis of the 1992 Groundwater Management Act. The Act clearly prioritizes the precious and limited groundwater of the coastal plain as being for human consumption. And yet, the DEQ and the Water Control Board continue to issue permits for industrial use of the Potomac Aquifer. And in fact, this action is predictably routine in the name of economic development. In the case of the Belico plant, We citizens have every reason to believe that groundwater withdrawals by the Chickahominy Power Station or New Kent County on its behalf, that these withdrawals from the aquifer could actually continue indefinitely, well beyond the 7 years of groundwater we're assured is the limit of this taking. How so? Should anything go awry with the extremely ambitious New Kent County plan to supply water to the plant from the Pamunkey River, there is no plan B, there is no backup, other than to continue drawing down our aquifer one way or the other. And why is there no backup plan? I asked everyone I could find. I asked at the DEQ information meeting in Charles City County in December. I called the State Corporation Commission, who is looking at the viability of the new Kent water supply plan. I never did get the answer that comforted me as a citizen, so that is why this is what I'm speaking to. Why is there no backup plan? I have been led to conclude that because Virginia's regulatory system is currently so weighted for industry that there's not even an agency responsible for asking about such possibilities. And I got to remind DEQ and the Water Control Board, you learned recently from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals that you can't just check the boxes and you can't just rely on the industrial applicant and revenue-hungry local governments like New Kent County and Charles City County to consider all of the important relevant factors. That's right. Having observed the many players in the regulatory game, I can only conclude that the localities, DEQ, and the Water Control Board have all shown themselves either unwilling or unable to make the decision to actually stop the use of the Potomac Aquifer for this merchant plant should it become necessary. Most especially once we have a $1.5 billion plant operating, who would shut down that plant for lack of water? There's no one who would do that on behalf of the aquifer. Citizens are beginning to ask who is mining the store, and I am proud to count myself among them. No special exceptions, no temporary withdrawals, not one drop of our precious groundwater for this enterprise. To the members of the Water Control Board, I urge you to do your job for the citizens of Virginia and deny this permit. Amen.
My name is Wanda Roberts, and I'm a resident of Charles City County. In late June of 2019, we found out that the 5th largest fracked gas power plant in the United States, known as the Chickahominy Power Plant, was proposed to be built in Charles City County. And in late July, we found out that the plant would be located within a mile of another proposed fracked gas power plant, half that size, known as the C4GT power plant. The lack of adequate notification to the residents of Charles City County regarding these two fracked gas power plants is fully documented. The county administration and board of supervisors have publicly admitted they should have done a better job of notification. As well, the residents of Charles City County have acknowledged that they too should have been more involved. At the June 21st, 2019 DEQ State Air Pollution Control Board meeting held in Glen Allen, they decided to set up a subcommittee to review notification issues based on the lack of notification faced by the residents of Charles City County. The continued efforts to handle the residents of Charles City County regarding the lack of information available about the power plants concerns me. At every turn we encountered promises to have information available only to be disappointed. Today, just a little while ago, in your lobby, DEQ did not allow this very meeting to have information passed out about all of the power plants, not just this one issue. But people are asking us, why can't we get more information about these power plants? And we're having to say, we're not allowed to do this. Y'all entered into a contract with the school and said that no one could come here and hand out information about the power plant. This is another step to silence the Charles City County residents about finding out information about these power plants. We're so far along before anybody knew anything.
That's right.
My concerns about the groundwater withdrawal is that temporary withdrawal of approximately 30 million gallons from 2 wells from the Potomac Aquifer per year for 7 years should not be voted on today. It should be delayed to allow the residents of Charles City County and the surrounding communities to have their questions answered and the opportunity to be informed about the entire projects. The biggest concern continues to be that the applicant, the Chickahominy Power LLC, has the ability to file a new application for groundwater withdrawal at the end of the 7-year period. I'm not sure if they can file it before that 7-year period ended. I just found this information out not too long ago at one of the DEQ information sessions, which we very much appreciated, except for the one, of course, in Charles City County, limited the people to have questions. The government officials in Henrico County stood up for their residents and said, this meeting, which all of these DEQ people here were at, they were at both of them, they were allowed to ask questions. I was one that was there, and I got so many answers and so much information that I did not get in the very one that was here in Charles City County. The last sentence in this DEQ notification under the purpose of the meeting states, DEQ has made a tentative decision to issue the special exception. How can the residents feel assured that you're going into this with an open mind if they have already tentatively decided with the applicant and with their administrators and the board of supervisors in Charles City County, you've already decided that this is going to be pushed through? This is not a done deal. Everyone is being told this is a done deal, and I can assure you by no means this is a done deal. I have heard that the DEQ and others in the county are being told that many concerned residents in Charles City County are lying about the notification issues. I'll be happy to write anyone with documented proof of how the lack of notification has held the county residents back. They need to be informed, just like tonight. They did not, there were 3 people that came up to me and said, I need more information. We have to take their name and number and email address so we can send them information. That's not our job. Our job is not to provide all this information, but because there is nothing forthcoming, we've had to step into that position. I urge you to vote no, and at the very least, delay the vote to allow the residents the opportunity to be informed about the entire projects that are going on here. You have the opportunity to press pause. This will allow the voices of the residents of Charles City County and surrounding communities to be heard. The residents of Charles City County should no longer be silenced and bullied. It is clear from the recent Union Hill case, Friends of Buckingham versus State Air Pollution Control Board, that DEQ's current environmental justice review is deficient and fails to meet the basic standards set out in the federal Fourth Circuit Court decision. For this reason, we also urge DEQ and the State Water Board to reject Chickahomany's groundwater permit until a rigorous environmental justice review is undertaken, which is consistent with the Union Hill case. Thank you.
Roberts. And to say I'm concerned and alarmed about the Chickahominy Power LLC special exception is an understatement. By definition, a special exemption permit is for a use or structure that is not allowed as a matter of right. As DEQ knows, the Federal Fourth Circuit repudiated DEQ's lack of methodology in evaluating environmental justice concerns and reversed the DEQ Air Board permit for the Union Hill case just recently. As a result of that court decision, DEQ should reevaluate the Chickahominy Powers LLC water withdrawal permit and hold the permit application to be incomplete, directing the permittee to go back and thoroughly assess environmental justice impacts as part of its application, consistent with the Union Hill cases. How can withdrawing 210 million gallons of water over a 7-year period be considered a matter of right? It certainly does not appear to coincide with the Code of Virginia, Title 10.1, Conservation Chapter 4.1, which declared the Lower James River a historic river and states, quote, "Full consideration and evaluation of a river's historic, scenic, ecological resources should be given before such work is undertaken. Alternative solutions should be considered before such work is undertaken." Were alternative solutions considered? Because there are alternatives. With the limited amount of notice given to the general public concerning this project, or other state agencies afforded access to the information concerning the project in a timely manner? Was the Department of Conservation and Recreation consulted during any of the planning phases of this project prior to your tentative decision to issue a special exception? Are Virginia Soil and Water Conservation Districts aware of this special permit? Have they weighed in? We urge DEQ to reject Chickahomany's groundwater permit until a rigorous environmental justice review is undertaken consistent with the Union Hill case. Then allow the citizens of Charles City, Virginia to decide how we want our natural sources to be used and not mandated to us by corporate entities that will leave our beloved county forever damaged. Amen. Thank you.
I'm Kay Ferguson. I'm here from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I am speaking to this community about my experience with the DEQ's public input process after 3 years of attending many hearings and meetings like this in the fight against the Mountain Valley and Atlantic Coast Fair Gas pipelines. So I'm really here to talk about what I'm calling the DEQ Roadshow, which I haven't had firsthand for a little while, and I would like to say that things have changed, but it doesn't look like it to me. It rolls into town, and the overture is, this is a done deal. The rushed air permit that was given for this project, even when the community scrambled to get to the meeting and told them that they hadn't been properly notified, quick, they passed it. But one of the things that's part of this roadshow is the compartmentalization, and that is designed to exhaust you. This is about this special groundwater exception withdrawal. The air is a different issue. The water is a different issue. When they start to bring a 30-inch frac gas pipeline through your county to feed these things, that'll be another issue. And it's your job to establish the baseline of what they're getting ready to destroy in terms of your water and your air and your health and your land value. And you double that. That's times 2 because there's 2 plants. And it's designed to wear you out and to keep you from seeing the big picture of what's being done to you, which is a robbery. Complexity is another aspect of this roadshow. Algorithms, modeling, slides, experts, all claim they know best. And they know what will happen when something that's never been built before is built. This is the biggest plant ever in Virginia, 5th largest in the country. But oh, they know exactly what's going to happen to your water. Their modeling told the community of Union Hill that they were not a majority African American community. They had modeling for that too. That stood there and watched them testify that people who were sitting behind them in that community didn't exist. That was their modeling. They're going to tell you that they can only enforce the laws and regulations as written by the Water Law of Virginia or the EPA, and the EPA, by the way, is being dismantled by the day in this country. And this gets followed up later with them telling you that they have no real right to revoke any permit that they've issued. That's not within their purview. They have no legal right. Their intent is to issue permits that the industry wants, and to determine how much they can pollute you, not to determine how to protect your safety, your environment, and the value of your home. And you're going to hear a lot from them in this roadshow about manners, etiquette. And I've been asking for a couple years for an etiquette book that tells you how you're supposed to behave when someone's trying to poison you, poison your well, steal the value of your home, steal your future. How you're supposed to have, what are the manners, what is the etiquette received that document yet. They're going to talk to you a lot about monitoring and compliance. You know, they're going to make sure and mitigation. But what DEQ does not tell you is that they do not have the means, nor the will, nor the leadership to do any monitoring or compliance. That's what we've experienced on the pipeline. Over 500 violations of the water sediment erosion control Mountain Valley Pipeline, and most of it reported by citizens. And what happens? Nothing. Melanie Davenport's going to tell you that she's going to write it down. She's going to write it down and give it to the industry. The monitoring that they're talking about is done by the industry. It's the fox guarding the hen house. Don't fall for it. Mr. Plan Bribe hasn't shown up probably here yet, but he will. He'll start giving a little money out from the industry to inserting that money right into the cracks in your community, whether they're racial or religious or economic or class, and, you know, he'll be stuffing some cash in there. When it's so bad that they make such big mistakes in this, violations of safety, they promise to write it down and to tell the industry. And in terms of mitigation and taking care of yourself and proving that your well was ruined by this company, you're on your own. I don't know how many people in this room have the money to sue a major corporation, but I bet it isn't many. They'll tell you that you cannot talk about the big picture.
Ms. Ferguson, I'm going to ask you.
Just a minute, you cannot talk about the big picture.
I'm going to ask you to address the matter that's the subject of.
I urge you not to pass this permit because it's one little piece of a bigger issue and a bigger crisis and a bigger fight, and I urge you to fight for your lives.
My name is Joshua Van. I come from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I'm disappointed but not surprised that we can't have outside information on the power plant this evening. And I find it difficult to believe that this is a condition of the contract with Charles City County Schools, seeing that DEQ is so ready to enforce it. It's pretty discouraging. Concerned citizens of Charles City County should intervene and call for the State Water Control Board to deny this permit. Because the DEQ and State Water Control Board will fail to hold the permit applicant accountable to conditions of the permit itself and will later misrepresent their perceived authority to do so. Concerned citizens of Charles City County should intervene because the State Water Control Board and Air Pollution Control Board will listen to Tom Dowd, James Golden, Melanie Davenport, David Paler, and others ignore then lie about concerns for environmental justice communities being saddled with a disproportional impact from polluting fossil fuel infrastructure. Concerned citizens of Charles City County should intervene because the DEQ, Water Board, and Air Board will ignore cumulative impacts of the proposed power station on Virginia's participation in skyrock and methane levels contributing to climate change. Concerned citizens of Charles City should intervene because the DEQ, Water Board, and Air Board will claim no responsibility when wells are ruined, property values fall, and when nearby citizens suffer diminished health to exposure to pollution. Concerned citizens of Charles City County should intervene because the DEQ will ignore all voices that do not speak to the technical trap of the inevitably issued permit. The technical trap with an inevitable outcome. It's always issued. Concerned citizens of Charles City County should intervene because the DEQ, the Water Board, and the Air Board will collude with law enforcement, corrupt politicians, and private profiteers to ensure that those who stand to be harmed will be silenced. Maybe they need to say something about outside information not being distributed. Concerned citizens of Charles City County, when they do intervene, will be supported by an experienced, dedicated, and willing, broad, deep, and growing coalition of grassroots groups from across the Commonwealth whose priority is environmental justice.
I'm from North Chesterfield. I am from the Department of Geography and the Environment at the University of Richmond. My area of specialty is sustainable energy, and I recommend that DEQ and the Water Board reject Balco's permit application. I'm going to talk for many reasons. The first one I'm going to start with is, of course, water. This local water that's being extracted for an industrial use is to create energy that will be exported. Many of this will be on the PJM electrical grid that's servicing customers outside of Virginia. Yet we know that this water impact is both local and regional. We are worried about certainly the ability for the aquifer to recharge. We're worried about compaction. We're worried about subsidence. And we're worried about a process of what state agencies do that other people have referred to as the compartmentalization. I refer to it as segmentation. So you come up and you show us a permit application that has really been broken down into a very small, fragmented piece of the larger picture. We're being told that this impact is minimal, but we know that if you actually look at the larger impact of all of this put together, the impact is actually quite significant. And so we do this certainly with water. We're certainly seeing that this happen with climate. And one of our concerns is that when you add it up comprehensively, the implications are much worse, and that we're not being given all of the information at the same time. So we don't know what other infrastructure is associated with this project. We do know that there probably will be other pipelines, supply projects, other things that will have an impact on the water. So it's almost condescending to show this implication and to suggest that it's really that minimal, because we know in fact it definitely will not be. I want to come back to the issue of climate because I am an environmental scientist, and we do know that you never look at water without looking at climate. These two things, called the nexus approach, you always look at water and climate together. I really hope that the Water Board will know that in 2020, climate is part of everything. You do not take it out of anything. Even if something was written in 1992, climate is part of every single environmental decision that we make now and moving forward. The amount of water that will be available will, of course, be less in the future because of climate change. So it is directly relevant. One of the main things I want to focus on here is environmental racism. We know that the direct vicinity of the gas plants is majority-minority. We know that the enhanced review process that would be required in a population like this did not occur for 2.5 years. For 2.5 years, they did not follow environmental justice norms. I'm not sure that we're following them now, I don't think we are, but certainly not like the first 2.5 years. We know there was not free, prior, and informed consent with the Chickahominy tribe, which is federally recognized. And we know, as people have mentioned, that the Fourth Circuit Court found racial discrimination using these same methodologies. What are those methodologies? Aggregated census data, that's exactly what was used in this case. EPA's EJ screen, used entirely incorrectly, was used in this case. And then the fact that you don't look at the different alternatives. There are alternatives that were not taken into consideration. These things were found deficient by a federal court. Since we know that these same methodologies were used here, I am quite confident that if this were given the same review process, that the permit that exists at this point would be revoked due to environmental racism specifically. And I have very closely followed how this permitting process was and is broken. And because of that, as we know, it's in front of many different review committees for environmental injustice, and as well as the Air Board having a subcommittee looking at the failure of participation in this process. Because of all of these flaws, I recommend a moratorium on all gas plants being built, certainly the ones in this community, but any gas plants that are being built in environmental justice communities, we need to stop, we need to halt, and we need to go back and look at how we're violating civil rights in this process, because it's happening repeatedly. Other things that I'm concerned about that have not been mentioned, there has not been a comprehensive risk assessment. There is a lot of risk with gas. It is not just associated with the water. It certainly comes with the discussion of trying to have water on site in case there's a fire hazard. As somebody who looks at gas explosions, I will tell you, you don't use water to spray it out when it gets this big. And I've heard the community be told you're going to be safer because you're going to have this water tank here. That's very misleading. That's not how you deal with an explosion of a gas plant. So water does come into it, safety comes into it. There has not been a health impact assessment. We know there are high rates of vulnerability. We know there are above state levels of poverty. We know that there's a lot of pre-existing health conditions. I certainly have heard quite a lot about a cancer cluster here. I personally am investigating that further, but we know that there are health concerns in this area. I would like to mention a couple of things. You've said that climate change cannot be relevant, but we certainly do need to think about the state's climate targets. There's no way that the DEQ could be putting out something that violates the state's climate targets. Building out the 6 new gas plants that are currently being looked at certainly means we will not be able to achieve that because of the implications of methane. I will stop there because I know you don't want to hear all of that, even though it is fundamentally essential for you to look at. I would like to make one other point, though, and that is that we don't know who Balco is. We know that we have people here speaking for Balco. We don't know who that larger entity is, but I do know that they recently just hired 2 lobbyists to influence the bills in the General Assembly, and I really feel that if there's lobbyists that are coming into our state to influence our policy, they need to show who they are. So I wish that we had more information. I think we have a lot of questions. I know we have a lot of concerns. Every single person is speaking to those concerns. And so as an environmental professional, with this being my specific area of expertise, I recommend that you reject this water permit.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Sims. I'm a resident of Henrico. And I want to say thanks to everybody that made the time to come out this evening, including Mr. Whalen, for you to hear from us. The Balco representative that spoke earlier touted how clean the project would be. So I just want to point out there is no way for something that emits toxic pollution and toxic emissions to be clean. Touting that it is better than national or state averages is not really something to brag about. Less bad than bad is still bad. Virginia's Office of Water Supply has spent years monitoring this aquifer, monitoring it for water use, the impacts of development and industry. In 2016, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission confirmed analysis from DEQ that groundwater supplies, including those in the Potomac aquifer, are insufficient to meet demands of current and future users. That was in 2016. Determined 4 years ago, and those problems continue today. DEQ itself admits that the Potomac aquifer has incurred an overall decline within a multi-county area. Why then allow a project or a special exception to take precedence over those that depend on that aquifer for their drinking source? The glut of unnecessary fossil fuel infrastructure only strains finite resources. That aquifer is finite. It is not unlimited. In the 2018 Status of Virginia's Water Resources Report, cumulative impact analysis indicated that these projected surface water withdrawal increases may result in potential negative impacts to public water supplies during future drought situations, particularly within the James, the Potomac, Shenandoah, and York River basins. And that includes where this plant would be. The modeling equivalents for water usage that we saw this evening referenced this being the equivalent of a subdivision or a farm. So I would ask, is there comparative analysis for what toxic emissions a farm would also produce? When I attended the first info session, the presentation was very heavy on groundwater impacts to wells and included steps on how to get recompense for your damaged well. So what that presented in the info session was, hey, we've already decided that this should happen. We're pretty sure your wells are going to be impacted. we want to go ahead and tell you from the start what you need to do to start that process to try and prove that this happened because of the project. I think that's something that it's coming from the wrong place. This is a finite resource. A mitigation plan does not have cumulative long-term impacts in it. That draft permit does not have cumulative long-term impacts. And so I would ask that because this is already a strained aquifer, a strained resource, for a project that's not necessary, but would absolutely have an impact on something that's finite, I would ask that you please deny the special exception.
Mara Robbins, and I live in Glen Ellen, Virginia. Although you guys have seen me before because I too have been fighting pipelines and trying to protect our water for 5.5 years. And I found it really interesting considering the lack of information that is allowed to be distributed. A sign that I saw in the restroom here in the school that says, if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are determined to learn, no one can stop you. I can guarantee you guys that the people in this room are unstoppable. So the fact that we are here discussing a special exception permit GW00787700 for groundwater withdrawal at a time when our groundwater is so precious, so compromised, and so priceless that it's really difficult to determine whether it's worse that you want to steal this community's water or poison them with frack gas power plants. It's really hard to watch this continue to happen. And it's difficult to walk in with less information than I'm used to having, much like the community of Charles City County has been caught off guard by a lot of these proposals. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is whether the Eastern Virginia Groundwater Management Advisory Committee has been consulted on this project, because evidently there is a committee whose job it is to monitor the groundwater in this part of Virginia, but I've heard no mention of them. Anybody else? I think they need to be brought into the dialogue. And I would also like to mention something that was said just a few days ago on the 23rd, by I believe someone who's sitting there on stage right now, that the DEQ wouldn't characterize the groundwater in the coastal plain aquifer system necessarily as abundant. There are areas where the volume is limited, and in fact, we've just completed a 7-year process where some permit fees were required to reduce their amount to ensure the long-term sustainability of the system, given the way that the aquifer works in the coastal plains. Location is very important as to whether or not any current available supply exists in this particular location. So you guys said this, right? And you're trying to tell people that it's not going to affect their wells when you're pretty much saying you don't know. I mean, I'm used to this, right? I'm used to hearing everybody talk out of both sides of their mouth. But in this case, having seen people's wells disappear, having seen their springs run dry, and we can't mitigate until the damage is done. So, stop the damage before it happens. Because I'm also here as part of Extinction Rebellion Richmond. And I have a message for you from XR via the mouth of Greta Thunberg. We are watching you. And we've identified Charles City County as a climate emergency. That is our primary demand, that a climate emergency declaration is issued and that we take action. This is a climate emergency. What Charles City County is facing is a climate emergency. Clean water is the most precious resource that we have. And we keep hoping that you will do your job and protect it. But we will most certainly do our job and protect it. Deny the permit.
Thank you very much.
I'm Martell. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm here in support of people that love from Charles City. I ask you to deny this permit on the grounds of environmental racism and on the ground that you can't replace water, you can't mitigate poisoning water. And I hope you understand that we're all really tired of doing this. I'm pretty new to this fight, but I'm already exhausted because I already feel like I know how this is going to go, and that's really heartbreaking. And I know that in these institutions that are built on years of systemic oppression and racism, you know, you may sometimes feel like your hands are tied, especially when you have folks like Balico and Irfan Ali, the CEO. I have no idea how much he makes, but it's probably a lot. But you can still do whatever you can to break this cycle of oppression, to do your job, and to protect people, and to stand up to the elites, to stand up to the 1%, to stand up to this oligarchy that is running all of our lives right now, and making it impossible for people to live normal lives. We can't trust you to protect our water. Throughout the US, that's a thing. Flint, Michigan, like the lead in RPS in Richmond Public Schools. There's, I mean, would you want this in your backyard? Would you want 2 of these in your backyard? Plus a landfill. Would Irfan Ali want this in his backyard? Because if he wants this plant, he could put it in his backyard. Like, I don't know if you want to ask him how he feels about that. But DEQ admits that you're having to negotiate groundwater withdrawal reductions with existing permittees in the area because rates of groundwater withdrawal are already simulated to be unsustainable without the addition of Balico's water consumption. And DEQ also admits that the Potomac Aquifer, from which Balico will extract water, has incurred an overall decline within the multi-county area. Justification given to the special exception includes that the withdrawal will be temporary and not as long as a typical groundwater withdrawal permit, and there being viable alternative water sources for providing for the power plant's water needs being available after the special exception period is over. But one of these viable alternatives is listing purchasing water from New Kent County. But Balico itself admits that this is not a sound option from a May 2019 document. This option would essentially involve Balico going from withdrawing water from the Potomac Aquifer to permanently buying water withdrawn from the Potomac Aquifer, equating to a typical groundwater withdrawal permit to withdraw water from the Potomac Aquifer for longer than the special exception period, which negates the special exception and defies the Groundwater Management Act, which DEQ admits prevents a typical groundwater permit. Another alternative is listed is surface water withdrawal, but the 2018 Status of Virginia Water Resources found that cumulative impact analysis indicated that projected surface water withdrawal increases may result in potential negative impacts to public water supplies during future drought situations, particularly within the James, Potomac, Shenandoah, and York River basins, indicating that surface water withdrawal increases could be unsustainable without the addition of Balico's needs, and this could worsen as periods of drought become more frequent due to climate change. Balico admits that it will not reduce its water consumption during these times of drought use outside of usage like cleaning vehicles or irrigation systems. Further, this option does not consider the cumulative impacts of the nearby C4GT's proposed surface water withdrawal of another 10 million gallons per day, or of some water supplies in the region switching to surface water withdrawal as part of DEQ's negotiations to reduce groundwater intake. Since the viable alternatives after the special exception period given by DEQ is a justification for the special exception period not viable at all, what justification can DEQ give for this special exception? And then my second question is just the mitigation plan. You can't expect people to have the money or resources to prove to Balico that damage has been done. And when the damage is done, it's already done. If people are poisoned, it's done. All you can do is to reject this at the beginning and say no now.
Alderman coming down this evening, especially you, sir, since you're doing a co-runner here tonight. But my name is Bill Coden. I am a resident of Charles City County, and I'm chairman of the Charles City County Board of Supervisors. On behalf of the majority of the board, and the only reason I say that is because we do have one new member that has not sat through this first regular monthly meeting yet. But I'll say the majority of the board does support the proposed environmental special exception for the temporary withdrawal of groundwater in Charles City County. We support the proposed permit for the following reasons. The proposed withdrawal is temporary, and alternate viable water supply options for the proposed electric generating plant will be available to reduce reliance on groundwater. The proposed natural gas-fueled electric power generating plant will positively impact the tax base of Charles City County. Many years ago, a county just across the James was going through a similar process of economic development. Today, Surrey County, who is about 500 people short of the population of Charles City, enjoys the highest teacher pay in the region, more than double the school budget that we have here in Charles City County. And the reason? Because they have a nuclear power generating plant that back when it was trying to come into business was being told by protesters that it was going to kill everyone within a 50-mile range, and it was going to make the James River glow at night, poison the air, and poison the water. And I don't think that that has quite happened. The Virginia Department of Environmental Quality has made a tentative decision to issue a proposed special exemption permit based on analysis of the adverse political potential impacts of the project. You have confirmed that the air is going to be safe and the water is going to be safe, using benchmarks and standards, and I thank you for that. Some people said you don't do your job. Well, I can inform the people of Charles City County that DEQ does do your job, because when I was elected 8 years ago, we were 2 days away from being fined $355,000 by DEQ because we weren't doing our job with our water and wastewater plants. So I do know that you do monitor, you do issue a notice of violations, because we have a stack from 8 years ago that I couldn't put both hands around. I would like to say also that if 100% renewables would support us, I as one board member would vote for 100% renewables, but we're not there yet. I encourage you to issue the permit so that Charles City can finally have the resources to come to age for not only us, but our children and generations to follow. Can I ask you one quick question? Has Steve, the Chief Adkin, signed on yet to speak? Because he called me today and asked me to relay a message. If he would, is Steve here? Steve Adkins here? No. Okay, he said he's going to try to make it. Contrary to what Dr. Finley Brooks said, the chief of the Chickahominy Indian tribes said that he is in support of this groundwater withdrawal. He has looked at numbers throughout the region, and he and the tribe are in support of this. They actually had their own meeting with the members of Malaco at the tribal center, so they are in 100% support. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you. Mr. Cudless, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Suzanne Keller. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I have deep concerns about the proposed special exception permit. I've looked at the permit and fact sheet, and my comments will be based on those documents. In the fact sheet, the DEQ says that issuing a groundwater permit in light of the strains on the Potomac Aquifer and the reductions in withdrawals required of other permit holders justifies issuing a special exception permit. That's on page 4. If I understand the logic here, there is no warrant to give Chickahominy a standard groundwater permit because of strains on the Potomac Aquifer. So DEQ is proposing a special exception instead. This suggests to me that no permit to remove groundwater should be granted, that it was not, as it would not be warranted under the normal process for withdrawal applications. DEQ continues its defense of the special exception permit by writing on the fact sheet on page 4, quote, "Chickahominy Power will provide an important public benefit by providing cleaner electricity to consumers in the short term," end quote. With all due respect, Mr. Whalen, both DEQ and the applicant tout this project is providing cleaner energy. They've raised it. I think it's very appropriate for citizens to look at that and challenge it. The so-called public benefit, cleaner energy, is simply asserted here as self-evident. That this fracked gas merchant power plant will actually provide the benefit of cleaner electricity to consumers. First of all, there is no need for more electricity generation to meet the needs of the people of Charles City County or any other county in Virginia. The power generated by this plant is not for consumers who reside in the Commonwealth. It's going to go on the regional market. Second, cleaner than what? Certainly, it will not be cleaner than a no-build option. The air pollution from the plant will degrade the air and quality of life for people who live nearby. Gas extraction, transport, and combustion is a dirty business that is contributing to climate change. Methane leaks associated with this industry are even more damaging to the climate than CO2 coal plants emit. Without a real public benefit, the use of Virginia groundwater for a purely speculative fracked gas merchant power plant is not acceptable. In its review of Virginia's groundwater management regime, JARC found that over 60% of permits in the Potomac Aquifer for industrial purposes, they write, quote, "Substantial industrial use of low-cost, high-quality water has the effect of crowding out higher priority use for human consumption." They talk about the costs of a municipal water authority developing alternatives being passed along to residents and businesses. Without substantial changes to the state's groundwater permitting process, this crowding out and higher costs to residential customers and businesses will continue, end quote. When there is a potential loss of well functionality in the vicinity of the power plant, it does seem like DEQ continues to put industrial uses over the needs of human consumption. This raises issues of environmental justice and fairness that must be addressed before any consideration is given to approve a permit for Chickahominy. The recent Fourth Circuit decision in Friends of Buckingham versus the Air Pollution Control Board and the Department of Environmental Quality, Judge Thacker stated that environmental justice is not just a box to be checked. There does not appear to be even a consideration of environmental justice concerns in this draft permit. Are people whose wells could be harmed by the permitted extraction members of an EJ community? Do you even know the answer to that question? Did DEQ consider the possibility of disproportionate impact? Lastly, in Code Section 62.1-11, Part C states, "The waste or unreasonable use or unreasonable method of use of water should be prevented. And the conservation of such water is to be exercised with a view to the welfare of the people of the Commonwealth." Your decisions about water, based in code, are supposed to be about the welfare of the people of the Commonwealth and their interest in the reasonable and beneficial use of those waters. Part D, the public welfare and interest of the people require the proper development, wise use, conservation, and protection of water resources. The public welfare and the interests of the people of the Commonwealth should come before the profit and welfare of out-of-state investors in this merchant power plant. The permit should be denied.
I'm Betsy Parati. I live in Charles City County, Virginia. And as the crow flies, about less than a mile from C4GT and less than 2 from this Chickahominy power plant. Now, I am going to apologize up front because I do not like speaking on a subject that I consider myself uneducated on. But we've heard a lot of the facts and figures, so mine's going to be more of an emotional plea. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. I've lived in this location for 17 years now. And in the last 5 years, the change I have noticed in my environment is scary. Now, I have read the permits. I don't understand them. Now, I got involved in this process in August when I found out about it. Now, I read the comprehensive land plan for the county, and when I got to the 92 groundwater thing, 30,000 gallons or whatever, special, I was like, oh, well, we're done. This isn't going to happen. It's right here. It'll never happen. So I don't understand what the exception could be. I mean, if you have the rules, why aren't you going to follow them? I happen to have a surface well because we've never been able to afford to dig a deep well. And I happen to do laundry today. And I'll tell you that all we do is try not to think about what's in our water. The smell is overpowering. So the thought of not one, but 2 of these plants and what's going to come down in the rain and then come into my poor surface well overwhelms me. And I know the golden rule. I know that those who have the gold make the rules. And when you're talking about $1 billion, I imagine that everything in Charles City County can't total that up. So I'm just a simple girl. I live a simple life. You know, I entertain no fancy. I had no idea these kinds of things happened. I just stayed in my little cocoon in the country and wasn't worried about it. Now my quality of life is threatened. I'm 50 years old and I'm going to have to move. I will not live that close to these facilities. I don't care what side of the argument on this you're on. I'm not living that close. And I gotta believe without that price tag, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because common sense will tell you we should be scaling back on this stuff. I love climate control and running water. When we lose power, I'm pretty upset about it. But I've got those things now. And to my knowledge, all the communities in America have these things now. And if they don't, then please go build that plant to where those folks don't have running water. But I can't open my windows now because of the smell from the dump. If these things fire up, I think we are in for an environmental disaster that we cannot even wrap our minds around yet. Forget about me living that close. I'm going to leave. Where am I going to go? Got no idea yet. We haven't worked that far in advance. But this isn't just going to affect me. Bill, you don't live that far. I've driven by your house with that smell of the dump. Good Lord in heaven, I don't know how you stand it either. I mean, we're all going to be affected. We need to use some common sense and just throw it down. So all of that technical stuff aside, I don't know first how you guys can look at the whole big picture. But I mean, just the water alone. We're drunk. I have to buy my water. I can't even drink my water. I get it from Diamond Springs. I hope they don't get it from the Potomac Aquifer, because that's where I bought water. So anyway, I hope I've lightened the mood a smidge. And, thank you for your time. Okay.
Beth Cordalis, I'm from Henrico County. And this exception to Chickahominy, this special exception, would put a strain on the Potomac Aquifer. And it isn't fair that this plant could receive an exception when other industries and residents are being asked to cut back on their water usage. The modeling presented by the DEQ is inadequate. We are in a climate crisis, and rainfall and temperatures in recent years have been shockingly unpredictable. It's outrageous to encourage more polluting gas plants to use our water supplies and risk overuse of the Potomac Aquifer, endangering water access for area residents with wells and all users of the aquifer. The DEQ and county officials committed an act of environmental injustice when they granted the Chickahominy gas plant its prior permits. Community members in Charles City and Verina, and especially the African American community, were not notified or involved in the process. The vast majority of area residents only learned of the gas plant 2 days before the State Air Control Board met to vote on the air permit. While the state and local officials would like to imply that they weren't involved because they didn't care, in the days just immediately prior to the Air Board meeting, those residents signed petitions, over 200, which the Air Board refused to receive. And they worked to organize a community group that is now thriving. It's called Concerned Citizens of Charles City County, or C5, to demand a fair and transparent process. However, the state has entirely shut this growing community movement out of their process. For example, residents from Charles City who organized in those 2 days to try to speak to the Citizen Air Control Board were told that they were not permitted to speak, even though 10 of them showed up, took time off of work, drove over probably 80 miles to attend that board meeting. They were denied the opportunity to even speak on this thing that's going to happen in their backyards. This gas plant, if it receives its water permits, will disproportionately pollute the air and water of African American residents in Charles City County, while their profits will go to investors who live very far from Charles City County. The DEQ's actions here are repeating the missteps at Union Hill. I don't believe that New Kent County will be able to supply the necessary water to Chickahominy within 7 years. I do believe that the Chickahominy gas plant is asking for 7 years because their lawyers think it's easier for them to request a special exception for 7 years now and then resubmit a new application or pay fines for withdrawing water when they are using it without a permit in 7 years' time. They don't wish to acknowledge that they actually intend to withdraw water from the Potomac Aquifer for a longer time than they're asking for. The timeline that they've requested seems arbitrary, since the New Kent agreement expires in just a few years. And while the New Kent community has water permits, I don't believe those water permits that New Kent has account for climate change or the pressures of supplying a major industry while their population changes. So in sum, I think that the DEQ should deny this special exception. Thank you.
I am a resident lifetime of this county, and I devoted most of my life here with the Sheriff's Office in Charles City County. I do not come prepared like the young ladies and the one or two gentlemen that I saw. I would say to my people, regardless of race, creed, you live here, you should pay attention to this meeting. One thing that struck me was when you, sir, don't know what your name is, I mean, I heard you say it earlier, you stopped that lady of person, permission to speak. We have freedom of speech. You didn't like what she was saying. And that bothered me with you all. That put me on a bad road automatically. Everybody has a right to their opinion and their facts as they know them. You stop that lady. I don't feel comfortable about that. So I've got to do now is catch up to see what's going on both sides. But I haven't heard anything from the other side that would tell me that you all are truthful. But I've heard from your side, and that bothered me, when you told that lady that she couldn't speak anymore. That tells me possibly you have something to hide.
That's right.
And if you have nothing to hide, then this county will not fight you if you are coming to help and we go along and we get along. I didn't see that tonight. That disturbs me. So I'm going to have to start figuring out what's going on with you all. And I know what's going on with my county. It's a poor little county. It's been a poor little county for the longest time. And I'm hearing these bits and bites, but you come into a county that is predominantly black, so you're going to come and you're just going to pull the wool over their eyes and going to have your way? No. I think not. You all need to be more open with the community, and perhaps you can't be, after what I heard you saying. You can't be. You have an agenda that's hidden from us. We don't have anything hidden from you. So I say, Charles City, be about your business. Because if this thing comes here, and it's right in my back door, I can get on my horse and ride right to it in 10 minutes or less. And when our wells start drying up, these folks here has got enough money to bury us. And I didn't mean to get up and stand and say anything against any particular, but when you talk about corporate versus citizenry, it's a different animal. These people got the money. We don't have anything. One person said, the little money that you put all our money together in Charles City, and would not. Those gentlemen would probably just kick it under the table. Our money versus the monies that they're worth. So be careful, Charles City. Don't let anybody come and destroy what we have come to know as a quality life to live, even though we're poor. But we still live a good life here in Charles City. Thank you.
My name is Aileen Rivera. I'm a Henrico County resident. And just wanted to tell the gentleman that just spoke, if you want to find out what the future looks like, if this proceeds to happen and how negligent DEQ has been, just look up the Friends of Buckingham versus the state and you will see exactly the same situation here. So please look that up. We'll be glad to supply that information. I just want to bear with me for a minute for the people that are new in this process, and as a reminder for the DEQ people, looking up at the mission of DEQ, it says, the Department of Environmental Quality protects and enhances Virginia's environment and promotes the health and well-being of the citizens of the Commonwealth. The vision of the Department of Environmental Quality is that Virginians will enjoy cleaner water available for all users, improved air quality that supports communities and ecosystems, and the productive reuse of contaminated land. In their values, they have stated their commitment that we are committed to support each other and the mission and values of this agency, and we work together and with the community to accomplish our task. Together with the community to accomplish the task. And sadly, that's the last thing that DEQ has been doing, working together with the community. Charles City County is a beautiful county, has a lot of great resources that they can use. I am here, their renewable resources, it has not been investigated, it has not been an option. I am here to ask you please deny the permit. I attended the information session at the Verona Library last Thursday, January 23rd, and I'm even more concerned for the lack of due diligence by DEQ. The use of the word assuming in the presentation and theoretically were used in a way that only proves negligence from DEQ's part. Like I said then, all you have to do is look at DEQ's permitting record that allowed developers with 895 toll road to access our aquifers, drying up the wells of many Verona residents. Many were not able to recover the cost of drilling new wells. That said also, it struck me with the presentation that the mitigation plan is offensive. It's offensive to the hardworking people of Charles City County and to any resident. I'm just asking that DEQ review their outdated practices for environmental justice. DEQ current environmental justice review is deficient, and the Federal Fourth Circuit Court proved how deficient DEQ was and negligent. The Governor Northam signed an executive order setting a goal for the state to produce 100% of electricity from carbon-free sources by 2050. This plan is not in accordance with what the state is mandating. I ask that you deny the permit and that you require a review of all the whole plan for this project. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Furman, 3400 Atkins Road. I appreciate your holding this hearing this evening, but I also would agree with Mr. Washington's request that you extend your arbitrary termination deadline to be able to hear from everyone who wants to speak. As a 40-year resident of Charles City County, I'm very concerned about the proposal by DEQ to issue a 7-year special exception to the Groundwater Management Act of 1992. That act requires a permit to withdraw 300,000 gallons or more of groundwater in any 1 month as requested by Chickahominy Power. I'm specifically concerned that a 30 million gallon annual withdrawal by a commercial venture from the Potomac Aquifer, in addition to already permitted withdrawals, may further unsustainably deplete the aquifer. Substantially known lowered water levels may occur in neighboring wells that may not be reflected in DEQ modeling, since the total issue is modeling and we really don't know in advance what might happen. Chickahominy Power holds a contract to receive already permitted water withdrawals from the County of New Kent, DEQ permit GW 00067000. There is no specific contract renewal option in this agreement that expires April 30th, 2024. This is likely less than 4 years from the potential approval of a special exception by DEQ. Chickahominy Power, represented by Jeff Freeman Jr., Director of Development for Balico, publicly stated on October 28, 2019, that plant construction would take up to 38 months. This likely will extend to at least late mid-2023, less than 8 months before the New Kent water agreement expires. The 7-year timeline presented and purported to be required by Chickahominy is unreasonably excessive. On August 27th, 2019, Bowman Consulting, representing Chickahominy Power, submitted a statement from Chickahominy to DEQ that a 10-year timeline was required to coincide with the requirements of funding institutions. After DEQ proposed a 7-year limit on the special exception, on September 9th, 2019, Bowman Consulting submitted a timeline purporting to show that 7 years would be required to complete a water line extending to New Kent. However, on December 6, 2019, Virginia Natural Gas submitted to the State Corporation Commission its case to construct a $1.3 billion pipeline expansion to serve the C4 GT plant. According to VNG, the Chickahominy plant has not yet requested a gas supply. The C4 GT request includes, and this is the important part, mechanics of parallel pipe construct approximately 14.6 miles of 30-inch diameter steel pipeline in a new right-of-way that runs parallel and adjacent to the company's existing VNG lateral pipeline in the counties of Hanover, New Kent, and Charles City County. This section would cross the Chickahominy River, State Route 60, CSX rail lines, and other roadways, and require easements similar to the Chickahominy plant water line to New Kent. The entire VMG project completion date requested is December 31st, 2022, or less than 3 years to accomplish essentially the same planning, design, permitting, and construction as required by Chickahominy. That pleads for 7 years, 4 years longer than VMG can construct a similar pipeline. The lengthy timeline presented by Chickahominy without an assured New Kent agreement extension and without demonstrating substantial water line work underway, even though Chickahominy has been fully permitted since June 21st, 2019, and could have been constructing that pipeline beginning last summer, suspiciously suggests the possibility of a future request by Chickahominy or some other organization that may take over the business at some point for less costly, permanent, on-site groundwater withdrawal. A future request that DEQ may be unwilling and perhaps politically unable to deny in 2027 with a $1.4 billion plant investment already constructed and producing electricity for commercial interests. A request that DEQ deny this request for a proposed special exception. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a resident of the county. I live at 13630 Sandy Point Road. I'm not as well versed or educated as many of these people speaking tonight. I'm just here basically to speak from my heart and my gut and say that I think that water is a precious resource. And at this time, as humans, we should be working on conserving and protecting our water resources, not exploiting them for industrial businesses here in the county. So that's my main concern, that DEQ would consider denying this permit, or at least also consider expanding the comment period. Because one reason I am not very well versed or educated in this matter is that I am one of many residents of the county who feel that they did not know about this in a timely manner. So I would hope that DEQ would consider expanding the comment period. And also that the county may consider having meetings with an opposing viewpoint. We've been lucky to have these open sessions with the plants and DEQ, where I have learned very much, and I'm grateful for that. But I would like to see the county offer a panel of opposing viewpoints, or obviously we have some experts here tonight who could tell us potential things or risks that could occur with this project. So as a resident, I would like to see some more transparency and a little open dialogue from both sides. And I appreciate you being here tonight, because I know it's getting late, so thank you again.
Being a retired machinist and a farmer and a son, a father, a lawyer, as far as farming, most irrigation system is through the river. You cannot take a well and irrigate them. Usually when we have droughts and stuff, we don't have water. So water supply is a big issue to me. And for being a machinist, the safety with which y'all working with, there's a lot of hazard. And we don't know everything about what's going on. So I'd like to get more information, the pros and the cons of the situation. And for us being, my daughter said, you must get things in writing made concrete, because y'all got a gray area where you can work with. And most people cannot fight the system. They don't have the funds. So once you get your feet in, your whole body in. So we need to get more information and get with the county more. Thank you.
City County resident, and I live about 2 miles from where this plant is going to be. And I just want you to decline a special exception because of water. I mean, water is very valuable to all of us. And the special exception is only for 7 years. I plan on being here for a lot longer than 7 years, and I don't know what that's going to do to the consumption of our water for us to move on. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Ray.
My name is Diane Cook. I live at 4711 Randy's Run. We live on a micro farm about 1 mile from the proposed plant and groundwater. Our well is screened into the Middle Potomac Aquifer. We were never informed about the air permit, weren't able to participate, and only found about this evening's meeting kind of indirectly and just a couple weeks ago. So as I was preparing for being able to come and understand the permits, I just was on the DEQ website, and there are 2 links that are important that are not working, so I wanted you to know about that. It's not part of this comment. It's the permit technical presentation to the Air Board, and also the factors considered under the Virginia Code and environmental justice. Those links are not working. So I wanted to request that the board consider opposing the special exception for the Chickahominy power plant for the following reasons. We've had low flow pumping, we've conserved water our entire lives, and that our environmental stewardship should not be undone by a private utility who would withdraw water but not replace it nor return it for reuse. It's a terrible waste of a valuable resource, right, to only use something a single time as part of a micro farm, just part of humanity. We always use, reuse, recycle, reuse things again. And also, I want to make the point that the aquifer, as you've already noted, it's already been dropped 60 feet. We already have problems in West Point down the road. We already know that we have problems. This is a valuable resource. Also, again, I wanted to mention that there's no need for this power. We have 500,000 solar panels going in Prince George County. We have hundreds of thousands of solar panels going right down the road. We don't, there's no need for this project. There's no need for the groundwater withdrawal. And the point that was made, that this is the size that would supply 300 house subdivision. Well, build it in Hanover County where they've got 300 house subdivisions. Charles City, you know, it's just, that's where that environmental justice, build it up there. But thank you very much.
Also live at 4711 Randy's Run. My original question tonight was the need for the groundwater withdrawal. The reason I say that is because about a year ago, we were told that both the C4G plant and this plant were going to construct water pipelines, surface water pipelines down 106 to the James River to supply their water needs. And that kind of satisfied our concern about the plant, because this isn't the first time we've been down this road with this particular site. In 2002, there was a well permit issued for groundwater withdrawal for another natural gas power plant that was not built. That permit was withdrawn in 2005 by the people there. So the reason I'm saying that is that, you know, it seems that the 7-year time limit for the groundwater withdrawal is so the plant can connect to New Kent. But as several people have mentioned tonight, what happens if that does not happen? You know, are they going to get to the point of where the plant is either operational or substantially completed, and they find out they're not going to get the water from New Kent? You know, what are they going to do at that point? The other thing I'd like to talk about has been the lack of outreach on this particular project. Both the C4G plant and the solar array project that's about 3 or 4 miles down 106 from the site, both have had town halls. They've reached out to the community about the projects, what's going to happen with them, what could happen with them. Everything with this particular plant has been secondhand. We didn't, even with the air permit, we didn't know that was even going on. So it's, like I said, it's all been second and third hand, and we only learned about tonight's meeting, and it was in the paper. It wasn't in the public notice, it was in an article. So that's pretty much my comments.
Thank you.
Luke 4705 Randy's Run. I'll tell you right off, I'm against this permit. One, getting information out to people in Charles City, it's really terrible. Who reads the paper on the day after Christmas? That's when you put the notice in. I throw it in the trash with all those ads that come in for after Christmas sales. I'm not looking for something like this to be in the paper that day. I come from Henrico County 4 years ago. I moved down to Charles City. Probably left it was one of the best managed counties in the country. If they had tried to propose to put this project in Henrico, they'd have been turned down flat. The people in Henrico look after the people in Henrico. I don't see that happening. I got a copy. I know you don't want to talk about the environment, but I'm totally disgusted with this. It's been approved for all these components to go into our air, and we're going to breathe them. I live a mile from this plant, and these components that's going into the air will be going in my lungs and all the people around me. So that's all I'm going to say. I appreciate the time, and I'm definitely against it.
Citizen of Charles City County, this is something that should not occur. You don't need to bring those big gas plants down here. You're going to mess with our water and our air. We need both to survive. You don't need anything down that's going to mess up what we have, what little bit we have. We already have the landfill. That's terrible. The smell is terrible. What's coming through there is terrible. Something needs to be done. I'm begging you as a citizen of Charles City County to please deny that request for the special permit for this water permit, because we don't need this. And also, as a majority black community, we were not told anything. The county wasn't told anything. All of us, we were in the dark. I found out about this in June of last year. They told me that it's been going on since 2014. Never heard anything about it. Because when they want to tell you something, they will find a way to let you know. When they run for office, anything they have down here, like a fair or whatever they decide they want to do, they let you know. But they didn't do their job to let us know what's going on in this county. We are tired of it. We want it to be better. We don't want them to come back and destroy our county. So please, deny the request for the special permit. Thank you so much.
Rollins, I'm coming here as a lifelong resident here of Charles City County. I'm also the clerk of Cedar Grove Baptist Church. And I would like to first of all thank you for taking the time to talk with us, and I ask that you please open your hearts and hear what we all have to say. I do want to also just thank Mr. Washington for what he had to say. I was a little girl growing up in Charles City when he was patrolling the streets. And so as he said, Charles City County needs to take notice. This is not a joke. The NAACP has said that they are willing to stand by us, because the first thing I want to talk about is environmental justice. I am a black person of this county. I represent a majority black church, and we were not sent any notices by the county, any residents, any of our planning board commissioning people, the people that make decisions that we elected. No one came to talk to us about this and let us know that we will be having not one, but 2 power plants that are coming here. As one resident already stated, they told they'd be piping water to these power plants, and now that it's changed course, that we are now digging a well to supply these power plants. That was not clearly represented. One of the things I want to put notice on is that our mitigation clause, as previously stated, is that many of the people that live around the impacted area, their wells are already out of the mitigation clause, which means that when they come to the table, they're already out of the game. They cannot have their wells tested, they cannot have their wells checked because they are no longer available to be a part of the mitigation clause because they're 20 years and older. Also, I asked if DEQ is approving a water permit when there's no gas lines to power these power plants. They're now asking to put in gas lines to power them. So I asked, how can we approve a water permit when there's no way to power these power plants? The residents here in Charles City, unlike what has been told to the world and to the local residents and surrounding counties, they are not an ignorant area. We are not a poor county. Poor is a state of mind. We may be a financially challenged community, that we are a rural community that likes to breathe the healthy and clean air that we have. We don't want to just have good enough air. We want to keep the air that we have and continue to build upon it. Right now, you are jeopardizing that, our air quality, and now you're jeopardizing our water quality by digging a well, as many of our people in the county have stated, that has a permit that will expire before these pipelines are even being proposed to be put in place. So I asked DEQ, have you done your due diligence? Our administration clearly communicated that they have no knowledge of how these plants work, they have no knowledge of how these will be operated, that they are relying solely on DEQ and the power plant companies to help them understand how this will all work. An entity or any administration should not rely on one person or one company or one organization to tell them how something will work. You need to have opinions from both sides of the party. For that reason, I ask that you deny this water permit because no one here in this county will be able to do anything if anything is hurt with these residents. I stand here as a resident of Charles City County, and I'm with Mr. Washington. I am here to fight. I will not let anyone come and jeopardize my hometown by putting in a power plant. I don't care how much money that this is proposed to bring. Surrey County has a nuclear power plant, and their schools are just as low on the SOLs as we are. So that proves no points for me for Mr. Washington. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware that if you withdraw this water, you're not only damaging our water quality and affecting our health, you are also declining a promising community. Just like New Kent, we have the power, we have the impact, and we also have the ability to be just as prosperous and developmental as New Kent, and we can have economic drivers as Rosie's, we can have economic drivers as Pilot, we can have economic drivers as a proposed VCU emergency plant that's coming here. We can also have those economic drivers. We do not need power plants to show that. The landfill was given to us in 1995 as a great opportunity and economic driver that no longer provides enough money to support us. The schools that you're standing here no longer are performing. Our mechanical systems are failing, and that is no longer providing any money for that. So I say, Charles City, are we in deja vu? Are you going to continue to stand here and let this continue to happen to us? Or are you going to stand up and you want to look at DEQ and tell them that we solemnly and we also ask you the most humble way we can to deny these water permits because they're not going to service us financially, environmentally, or any kind of health impact. So again, I please ask that you deny this permit because environmental justice and also it's going to destroy a thriving community. Thank you, Jason.
In Charles City County, I live less than 5 miles from where this plant is supposed to be. I'm here and I'm against it because I've been here all my life. I brought a home here. I did not expect to have to leave or not be able to raise my family here because you're gonna take and put a plant here and mess up with my air quality, my water, my well. You might even take my property. I don't know. Because the way everything is going now with y'all, it's the last minute you let me know, then it's one, you say one thing and then it's another thing. We say we're gonna have meetings for this, meetings for that. You look up, they change the time, they change the date, it's not, no notification. I'm really against this. This is a small county, you're trying to bring a very large plant here. We barely have the things we need now. So how are you going to be able to put out an explosion or anything else like that if that was going to happen? I think you should deny it. Thank you.
F. Wayne Henry, pastor of Cedar Grove Baptist Church, Forge, Virginia. First of all, I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for having this hearing. Also, I would like for you to notice something. Except for a Board of Supervisors member that wants to stroke his ego, no one that has spoken tonight spoke in support of approving the special exception permit. Knowing this, I was reminded of a quote attributed to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from the Birmingham jail, which read, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." I stand here to say that it was an injustice the way the Charles City community was left out of the loophole as the permits for the Chickahominy power plant was considered. It was an injustice for the county and the DEQ to only meet the minimum notification requirements. It was an injustice to say that one person speaks for the African American community when approving the air permit. It was an injustice to say that all churches were notified of the impending plans when they clearly were not. It was an injustice for a county leader to tell the DEQ that the property values of their residents can't go any lower because the property values are already as low as they can go. It is an injustice to try and silence someone who doesn't agree with you. And it would be an injustice for the DEQ Water Board to approve the special exception water permit for the Chickahominy power plant. In closing, knowing that the federal Fourth Circuit Court totally highlighted DEQ's lack of due diligence when it comes to approving these permits, I ask you tonight to reevaluate Valco's water withdrawal permit and hold the permit application to be incomplete, directing the Valco company to go back and thoroughly assess environmental justice impacts as a part of its application, consistent with the Union Hill case, Friends of Buckingham versus State Air Pollution Control Board. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles City, for showing up out here tonight. Most everything I want to talk about has been said, so with that being said, I'm going to give you a little bit of personal information about myself, where I come from, what I've done in my past, and what I see happening here. Growing up, my grandfather was an Algonquin Indian. Every Saturday, us kids got together with him, and he went through the weeds and showed us how to get black root and how you make birch beer and sassafras and all this crap. And everybody, excuse my language, right? The Reverend knows I'm pretty bad at it. With this being said, I grew up in an environment to protect our environment. This isn't happening. I fought to clean up a river called the Still River. It was green and red, bubbling. It had dyes in it. It had coal ash in it. It had multiple other chemicals in it. They had to reroute the river to clean the river up. That's water pollution. Simple and plain as that. Is this what we're looking for here in Charles City? Are we looking for this in our wells here in Charles City? In my well, I live a couple miles from where the plant's proposed by the way the crow flies. My well goes dry. I put it in when I moved in here 12, 13 years ago. If it goes dry or gets contaminated, you all are big enough to fight me. I'm going to have to put a new well in. I can't afford a new well. It's insane for us to be going here. It's insane for us, humans on this planet, to keep polluting this planet. Keep adding garbage to our environment and never care about cleaning up the environment. Before I get much more upset, I'm ending it here. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I'm a resident of Henrico County, currently born and raised in Richmond. I urge you, the DEQ, to not allow the special use permit for the water. One of the questions DEQ had that was claimed to be resolved at the previous April meeting involves Valco reducing the amount of water they claim is needed to run the plant from a figure of 106 million gallons per year given to DEQ before the application was submitted to the 30 million gallons per year given in the application. Valco gives a brief explanation in responses that it sent to DEQ's questions in a February 2019 document, but this explanation provides no technical data for such drastic reduction in water needs, which is very concerning to me. Where's the technical data to back up this reduction? More specifically, Balco claims that this initial figure of 106 million gallons per year was based on the use of an evaporative cooling system year-round. Really, this system is only used at ambient temperatures greater than 59 degrees, and that the figure was also based on using the peak consumption value. What temperature modeling did Balco use that found such a drastic reduction, and what consumption value did they use, if not the peak consumption value, what can be assumed to represent the maximum amount of water Balco is asking for, which is now 30 million gallons a year? Did the temperature modeling used account for higher average temperatures and more frequent periods of very high temperatures that are a fact of our current situation with climate change? And I want to say, I really think that the citizens of Charles City County are being taken advantage of in a very bad way. Environmental racism, profit before the people, that this is an unnecessary 2 power plants, not just one, that will, I understand the DEQ thinks it's doing a good job, but my experience is that it is putting industry before people because profit, which does not filter down to the people. Water is life. Thank you.
Peter, I'm from Ashland, Virginia, Lorna Charlton from Henrico, Richmond, and we are with the Virginia Poor People's Campaign. Just to let everybody here know, and we have information for people who want to know, join us. The Poor People's Campaign is a rapidly growing national movement led by the Reverend William Barber and the Reverend Liz Theo-Harris that echoes the original tenets of the 1968 campaign launched by Reverend Martin Luther King to address systemic racism, systemic poverty, the war, economy, and militarism, the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism, and has added ecological devastation and environmental injustice, recognizing the intersectionality of all these issues in regards to injustice. So we, the Poor People's Campaign, which is growing exponentially, recognizes Charles City as an environmental justice community, as we did and still do Union Hill in Buckingham County. We all know about the 4th Circuit Court hearing decision overturning the air permit there, and we were all involved in that. I'm not going to repeat that because it's already been said, but I just want to say, that, to quote the court, arbitrary and capricious decision by the DEQ. Now, the DEQ has apparently initiated a review of environmental justice on September of last year. We appointed SKIO Solutions, partnered with the Spectrum Environmental Sciences to lead an environmental justice study. To quote Director David Paler, "We're extremely pleased to have SKIO on board to develop a clear process for incorporating environmental justice principles into our plans, policies, and programs." They continue to state that SKIO's work and the DEQ's review recommendations expect to take from 9 to 12 months to complete. Now, I'm not great at math, but from my calculations, that would be the earliest of June. That means there has been no environmental justice study. So you should heed the advice of the court, and before you make any kind of decision. We should not be having this meeting now until this environmental justice study is done. So, I don't know what we're going to say. And by the way, Bill Cody from the Board of Supervisors, who was the only one who was for this permit, has left the building. I just want you to know that.
I just want to say from the Poor People's Campaign, somebody is hurting my people, and we will not be silent anymore.
Yeah. Kath Carter from Maryland, Virginia.
I'm here as speaking as an individual, but I happen to also be a director on the Soil and Water Conservation Board, which is not a regulatory board, but it is responsible for making sure that the water and the soil is good. I wanted to bring to the board's attention, and I do appreciate you spending this time, that it would be irresponsible and negligent for you to issue the special exception holder mitigation plan because your regulations are incongruent with each other. It starts off by saying the board shall issue a groundwater withdrawal permit. Shall is a powerful word, and it gives conditions on how must be met in order to issue that. And then underneath it talks about mitigations for when the water is compromised. It says you shall not issue, well, it says you shall issue it only if the things are where the water is going to be safe and not be compromised. And then later it says, well, after the water is compromised, you're going to have to do these other things. And one of the things that's concerned me, because I've gone to speak several times at the State Water Control Board, is I see no evidence that you all have a regulatory committee to review these regulations and to make sure that they're congruent with each other and make sense in this day and age. And that's a serious problem. You can't issue any more permits like this until you get your regulations straight. And you can't get your regulations straight until you have a regulation committee that reports out to the board, to the governor, to the General Assembly to get it done. And that's not going to happen right now. So you cannot approve this permit right now. The other thing is that there's no way in the middle of this climate crisis that you can even begin to think this, and I cannot imagine a more frustrating time to be the State Water Control Board when everything is so chaotic and there are no standards anymore. I'm a climate reality leader, my background's in reinsurance, and that's just where we are right now. So with that in mind, and to save you all some time with the courts and your counsel, I plead with you to deny this permit until you all are in a position to be able to do so and uphold your responsibilities and your oaths to the Virginia Constitution. Thank you so much.